Greetings to you all, and welcome to today's teaching. We are on Leviticus chapter 7. We are almost through. Let's begin. Leviticus 7, verse 1. Likewise, this is the law of the trespass offering. It is most holy. At first glance, this is a very short verse. But notice something immediately. The chapter begins exactly where chapter 6 ended. The trespass offering. Next, this is the law. Again, we encounter the word law. But throughout these studies, we've consistently been uncovering principles beneath the rituals. So we can read this as this is the principle of the trespass offering. What is the trespass offering? The trespass offering is not merely about wrongdoing. It is about stewardship, responsibility, restoration, alignment, and making things right. The sin offering revealed misalignment. The trespass offering restores alignment. The sin offering reveals the hidden thing. The trespass offering asks, what will you do now that you see it? This connects beautifully to real life. Suppose awareness reveals, I've been operating from fear. That's the sin offering. Then comes the trespass offering. What changes now? What is restored? What is realigned? Relationship example. Awareness reveals, I've been controlling. The trespass offering asks, how will trust be restored? Career example. Awareness reveals, I've mishandled responsibility. The trespass offering asks, how will stewardship improve? Spiritual example. Awareness reveals, I've misunderstood something. The trespass offering asks, how will understanding now be lived? Next, it is most holy. The trespass offering is called most holy. Why? Because restoration is holy. Think about that. Awareness is holy. Transformation is holy. Restoration is holy. Many people assume holiness means separation from mistakes. Leviticus repeatedly presents holiness differently. Holiness appears wherever consciousness returns to alignment. This connects beautifully to everything we've seen. The hidden thing becomes known. The known thing becomes acknowledged. The acknowledged thing becomes restored. That process is holy. This is one of the most beautiful insights in Leviticus. The chapter does not glorify the trespass. It honors the restoration. The holiness is not in the mistake. The holiness is in the return. This connects beautifully to the story of Jonah. Nineveh becomes aware. Nineveh changes direction. Restoration begins. That process is holy. This connects beautifully to Job. Job's old understanding collapses. A deeper awareness emerges. Alignment returns. That process is holy. This connects beautifully to Paul. The scales fell. Awareness arrived. A new life emerged. That process is holy. Some of the holiest moments in life are not the moments when we appear perfect. They are the moments when awareness leads us back into alignment. The return, the restoration, the willingness to realign with truth, just like the story of the prodigal son. The willingness to return, the willingness to realign with truth. The hidden question. Verse 1 asks, what is being restored in my life? What awareness is calling me into alignment? What responsibility is emerging from understanding? What truth am I now being invited to live? One of the most sacred acts of consciousness is the willingness to return to alignment once truth becomes visible. The holiness is not in never wandering. The holiness is in returning. Next verse. In the place where they kill the burnt offering, shall they kill the trespass offering, and the blood thereof shall he sprinkle round about upon the altar. Place represents the same area of life where the failure occurred. Kill the burnt offering represents the old mindset, ego, or way of living comes to an end. Kill the trespass offering represents the attitude that produced the wrongdoing is surrendered. Blood represents life, experience, and understanding gained through the situation. Sprinkle round about upon the altar is to allow the lesson learned to influence every area of your life. Notice that both the burnt offering and the trespass offering are offered in the same place. Why? Because transformation usually happens in the very place where we failed. The relationship that ended, the friendship that was broken, the opportunity that was lost, the trust that was damaged. The failure becomes the classroom. The old version of ourselves dies, and a wiser version begins to emerge. The blood is sprinkled around the altar because the lesson is not meant to stay in one area of life. It should shape how we love, lead, trust, speak, and live moving forward. The goal is not guilt. The goal is growth. Relatable examples. When we are young, it's easy to believe I'm attractive. I will always find someone else. I still have time. This relationship isn't that special. So we become careless. We stop appreciating the person. Eventually, the relationship dies. In other words, it ends. After several disappointing relationships, we finally realize what we had. Although we cannot go back, something within us has changed. The pride dies. The entitlement dies. The immaturity dies. Now we say, if I ever find someone with that kind of character again, I will never take them for granted. That is the burnt offering. The old mindset has been sacrificed. If reconciliation becomes possible, we return as a different person, one who now values what they once overlooked. Next example, parenting. A parent spends years prioritizing work over their children. One day, the children become distant. The relationship is strained. That painful realization becomes the altar. The parent begins making time, listening, and being present. The old priorities are sacrificed. A new way of loving is born. Next example, health. Someone ignores their health for years. Poor eating habits, no exercise, constant stress. Then comes a serious health scare. That experience changes everything. The unhealthy lifestyle dies. A healthier one begins. The illness becomes the teacher. Next example, career. An employee continually arrives late, ignores feedback, and takes opportunities for granted. Eventually, they lose the job. At first, they blame everyone else. But over time, they recognize their own part in what happened. The next opportunity is approached with discipline, gratitude, and excellence. The old attitude has been sacrificed. Next example, spiritual growth. Sometimes we only appreciate truth after living through confusion. We chase every trend. We believe every voice. Eventually, we become exhausted. That disappointment becomes the altar where discernment is born. We no longer believe everything we hear. We begin valuing wisdom over excitement. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that our greatest failures can become our greatest teachers if we allow the old self to die. The offering is not about destroying the person. It is about surrendering the mindset that created the problem. This is why Paul writes, put off the old man, put on the new man. The sacrifice is the old way of thinking. The new life is the wisdom that grows from experience. Sometimes, the most valuable lessons are learned only after we lose something we once took for granted. If we allow that experience to transform us, the loss is not wasted. It becomes the place where a wiser, humbler, and more loving person is born. Next verse. And he shall offer of it all the fat thereof, the ram, and the fat that covereth the inwards. Fat represents accumulated character, deep desires, the things that have grown within us over time. The ram represents the past, former identity, old habits, the old self we continue to carry behind us, or patterns we refuse to leave behind. The fat that covered the inwards represents hidden motives, buried emotions, self-justifications, and internal attitudes that cover the heart. The deeper principle. Transformation is never partial. It is not enough to change our words while keeping our old mindset. It is not enough to appear different while secretly feeding the same unhealthy desires. Leviticus says all the fat is to be offered, not just the visible parts, not just the acceptable parts, even the parts behind you. The old identity you've carried for years must be surrendered. Many people want a new life while dragging the old one with them. They continue introducing themselves through yesterday's failures. They say things like, I've always had anger. My family has always been this way. This is just who I am. The Lord says, bring that to the altar too. The goal is not to destroy the person. The goal is to release everything that keeps the person from becoming who they were created to be. Relatable examples. Relationship. Someone was controlling and possessive in previous relationships. After losing someone they deeply loved, they realized their behavior was the problem. Instead of blaming every former partner, they released the old pattern. The ramp, their old way of relating, is finally placed on the altar. Next example, parenting. A parent grew up in a home where shouting was normal. Without realizing it, they begin raising their own children the same way. One day, they recognize the cycle. Instead of saying, "That's how I was raised," they decide the pattern ends with them. They leave the old family identity behind. Career example. An employee constantly cuts corners because that's how everyone survives. Eventually, they realize those habits have damaged their reputation. They commit themselves to honesty and excellence, even when no one is watching. The old professional identity is surrendered. Spirituality example. A person has always approached religion through fear, shame, and condemnation. As they grow in understanding, they realize they have been projecting those same attitudes onto others. Rather than defending the old mindset, because that's how we've always taught it, they allow truth to transform them. They leave behind the old way of thinking. Personal growth. Someone has carried resentment for years. It has become part of their identity. They introduce every conversation through what someone did to them years ago. Healing begins the moment they stop allowing yesterday's wounds to define today's identity. The past no longer sits in control of the present. The hidden question. What old version of yourself are you still carrying behind you? If truth invited you to place that old identity on the altar today, would you let it go? Or would you keep introducing yourself through your past? Next verse. And the two kidneys, and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks, and the cow that is above the liver, with the kidneys, it shall he take away. The two kidneys represent discernment and judgment. The inner ability to distinguish between truth and falsehood, between wisdom and foolishness. The fat upon them represents biases, unhealthy attachments, prejudice, pride, and emotional baggage that cloud discernment. Flanks represents the areas that provide support and stability, the foundations upon which we make decisions. The curl above the liver represents the veil covering our deepest emotions, passions, desires, and impulses. To take away is to remove whatever prevents clear perception and righteous judgment. Moses now moves even deeper into the inner life. The kidneys were understood as one of the deepest parts of a person, the place associated with testing, examining, and discerning. In other words, how we judge life. But Moses doesn't simply mention the kidneys. He says the fat surrounding them must also be removed. Why? because discernment can become caved. We don't always judge situations based on truth. Sometimes we judge through past trauma, pride, jealousy, favoritism, fear, resentment, cultural traditions, or personal gain. These become layers that distort our perception. The liver represents our deep emotional drives and passions. The covering above it symbolizes whatever prevents those emotions from being governed by wisdom. Leviticus teaches that transformation requires more than changing behavior. It requires removing everything that clouds our judgment and governs our emotions. Relatable examples: judging through past pain. Someone was betrayed in a previous relationship. Years later, they meet a genuinely kind person. Yet every act of kindness is met with suspicion because the old hurt still governs their discernment. They are not seeing the new person clearly. They are seeing yesterday's wound. The fat covering their kidneys has distorted their judgment. Healing removes that covering so they can discern people as they truly are. Next example, parenting. A parent grew up believing children should never question adults. As a result, they dismiss their child's feelings without listening. One day, they realize that wisdom is not determined by age alone. They begin listening, asking questions, and creating a safe environment for honest conversation. The old layer of pride is removed, allowing healthier discernment. Next example, leadership. A manager always promotes friends instead of the most qualified employees. Not because the friends are better, but because favoritism has clouded their judgment. Eventually, the organization suffers. The lesson is that leadership requires removing personal bias, so decisions are based on integrity rather than preference. Next example, faith communities. Someone has inherited an interpretation of scripture for many years. Whenever they encounter a different perspective, they reject it immediately without examining the evidence, because tradition has become the lens through which they judge everything. Leviticus challenges us to remove every covering that prevents us from honestly testing what is true. Discernment grows when we are willing to examine rather than merely defend. Everyday life. Imagine a hiring manager interviewing two candidates. One reminds them of someone they disliked years ago. Without realizing it, they judge the applicant unfairly. Another candidate reminds them of a close friend. So they overlook obvious weaknesses. Neither decision is based on truth. Both are influenced by hidden bias. Leviticus calls us to remove those inner coverings, so our judgments become just and impartial. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that awakened living requires more than a changed lifestyle. It requires a renewed way of seeing. Truth asks us, what is influencing my judgment? Am I seeing clearly? Or am I seeing through fear, through pride, through tradition, through past wounds, or through personal preference? When those coverings are removed, discernment becomes clear. This is why Jesus repeatedly said, "Judge righteous judgment." He was not encouraging condemnation. He was calling people to see clearly. The true sacrifice is allowing truth to remove every layer that clouds our discernment until our decisions are guided by wisdom, love, and integrity rather than fear, bias, or emotion. Next verse. And the priest shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a trespass offering. Priest represents discernment, wisdom, conscience, or the higher awareness that guides us back to truth. Burn is to transform, to allow the old nature to be consumed so something new can emerge. Altar represents the heart, the inner place where transformation occurs. Fire represents truth, divine awareness, purification, and illumination. Offering made by fire is the willing surrender of the old self to the refining power of truth. Trespass offering is the process of restoring harmony after departing from truth. After removing everything that clouded judgment and corrupted the heart, Moses now says, burn it. Why? Because some things are not meant to be stored. They are not meant to be managed. They are meant to be released completely. The fire represents truth. When truth comes, it exposes what no longer belongs in us. Pride, bitterness, greed, dishonesty, fear, jealousy, control, and manipulation. The altar is where these old patterns are surrendered, allowing truth to transform us from the inside out. Notice that the offering is made unto the Lord. The purpose is not punishment. The purpose is alignment with truth. The fire does not destroy the person. The fire destroys what has been preventing the person from living in integrity. Relatable examples. Someone loses a meaningful relationship because they refused to apologize. For years, they defended their actions. Eventually, they realized their pride cost them someone they deeply loved. Instead of continuing to justify themselves, they let pride go. The old ego is burned on the altar. Humility takes its place. Next example. A person carries anger toward a family member for many years. That resentment begins affecting every relationship they have. One day, they realize they are allowing yesterday's pain to control today's life. Forgiveness does not erase what happened, but it releases the bitterness that has been consuming them. The resentment is burned away. Freedom begins. Career example. Someone builds their career by cutting corners, manipulating others, or taking credit for work they did not do. Eventually, they recognize that success without integrity brings no lasting peace. They commit themselves to honesty, even if it costs promotions or recognition. The old way of succeeding is placed on the altar. Spiritual growth. Someone spends years needing to prove everyone else wrong. Every conversation becomes an argument. Every disagreement becomes a battle. As they mature, they discover that wisdom is not measured by winning debates, but by living the truth. The need to always be right is consumed. The love of truth remains. Parenting. A parent realizes they have been raising their children through fear because that is how they were raised. Instead of repeating the cycle, they choose patience, listening, encouragement, and understanding. The old pattern ends with them. The fire consumes the inherited mindset. A healthier family culture begins. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that transformation requires surrender. Some things cannot be carried into the next season of life. They must be left on the altar. The fire asks, what old pattern needs to end today? What fear? What pride? What bitterness? What excuse? What identity? This is why Paul later writes, put off the old man, put on the new man. The old self is not merely improved, it is surrendered. And this is why John the Baptist says, he shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire. The fire of truth burns away everything that is false. so that what remains is genuine. The heart of Leviticus is not distraction, it is purification. The fire does not consume you, it consumes everything that keeps you from becoming the person truth is calling you to be. Give me a minute, please. All right, let's continue. Verse 6. Every male among the priests shall eat thereof. It shall be eaten in the holy place. It is most holy. Every male represents the active, mature, and responsible aspect of our consciousness. The part that acts upon truth, rather than merely hearing it. Priest represents those who minister, discern, teach, and live by truth. Our awakened consciousness and higher awareness. Eat thereof is to internalize, embody, and live what has been learned. Holy place refers to the inner sanctuary of the heart and mind, where transformation takes place. Most holy is truth that is meant to become part of our very nature because it produces life, healing, and restoration. After the trespass offering has been made and the old patterns have been surrendered, Moses introduces something beautiful. The offering is not simply burned. Part of it is eaten. Why? Because truth is not merely something we observe. It is something we internalize. It becomes part of us. You can attend teachings every week, read countless books, memorize scripture. But if truth never becomes part of your character, it remains information rather than transformation. The priest eats the offering because wisdom must be digested. It must nourish the inner life. It must become the way we think, speak, and live. This is why it is eaten in the holy place. Transformation happens within before it is seen without. Relatable examples. Someone repeatedly hears teachings about communication, forgiveness, and honoring their partner. For years, they agree with every message. Then one day, they stop merely agreeing and begin practicing what they have learned. They listen instead of interrupting. They apologize instead of defending themselves. They appreciate instead of taking the other person for granted. They have finally eaten the offering. Truth has become part of who they are. Next example, parenting. A parent learns that children flourish when they are heard, respected, and guided, rather than ruled through fear. Instead of simply saying, "That was a good teaching," they begin changing how they speak to their children every day. Knowledge becomes practice. Career example. An employee learns about integrity, stewardship, and excellence. Rather than treating these as motivational ideas, they begin arriving on time, honoring commitments, protecting company resources, and serving others faithfully. Their teaching has become nourishment rather than information. Next example, spiritual growth. Someone studies symbolic teachings for years. They can explain every symbol. They know every pattern. Yet they remain impatient, prideful, and unwilling to receive correction. Another person understands less intellectually, but consistently lives with humility, kindness, and integrity. Leviticus reminds us that truth is meant to be consumed, not merely collected. That's why Jesus said, "Eat my flesh and drink my blood." Truth is meant to be consumed. You are meant to embody truth, to let it become a lifestyle, to let it become part of who you are. Next example. Imagine reading a book on forgiveness. Closing the book does not transform you. Transformation begins when you forgive the person you've been holding resentment toward. You have now eaten what you learned. It has become life within you. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that truth is nourishment. The purpose of every lesson is not simply to increase knowledge. It is to transform the person receiving it. This is why Jesus later says, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God." And again, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me. Jesus continually uses food as a picture of living truth, not merely hearing it. Leviticus has already been teaching the same principle. The offering becomes food because truth must become part of our character. The question is not, what do I know? The question is, what have I become because of what I know? That is what it means to eat the offering in the holy place. Truth is most holy when it is no longer just understood, it is lived. Next verse. As the sin offering is, so is the trespass offering. There is one law for them. The priest that maketh atonement therewith shall have it. Sin offering represents recognizing where we have missed the mark through ignorance, weakness, or poor judgment. Trespass offering is restoring what has been damaged through wrongdoing, deception, or violating another person. One law is one universal principle. Truth does not operate by different standards for different people. Priest represents discernment, awakened conscience, and the wisdom that guides us back into alignment with truth. Maketh atonement is participating in restoring harmony, integrity, and reconciliation. Shall have it means the one who practices truth becomes nourished and transformed by it. Moses now reveals something profound. He says, there is one law for them. Why? Because whether we miss the mark unintentionally or deliberately violate another person, the path back is the same. Truth, repentance, restoration, and transformation. Moses removes the illusion that there are small sins and big sins when it comes to the heart. There's nothing like small sin and big sin. Sin is sin. Misalignment is misalignment. Every departure from truth ultimately calls us back to the same place, back to alignment. The priest receives the offering because the one who ministers in truth is also nourished by truth. You cannot continually help restore others without yourself being transformed by the very principles you teach. Relatable examples. Parenting. One parent shouts at their child out of frustration. Another parent emotionally neglects their child because they are consumed by work. The actions are different. The healing begins the same way. Recognize the harm. Take responsibility. Restore the relationship and live differently. There is one law. Next example, marriage. One spouse lies. Another takes their partner for granted. Another constantly criticizes instead of encouraging. The behaviors are different, but every healthy marriage is restored the same way. Truth, humility, forgiveness, and changed behavior. The principle never changes. Career example. One employee steals company property. Another wastes company time every day. Another lies on reports. Another refuses to do their work faithfully. Different actions. The one principle, integrity. The solution is always a return to honesty, responsibility, and stewardship. Leadership example. One leader abuses authority. Another becomes prideful. Another withholds opportunities from others out of favoritism. Although the expressions differ, they all require the same transformation, a return to servant leadership. Power must once again serve people instead of self. Spiritual growth. One person struggles with pride, another with fear, another with jealousy, another with resentment. We often compare struggles and imagine some are more acceptable than others. Moses reminds us that the invitation is the same for everyone. Bring it to the altar. Allow truth to transform it. There is one law. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that truth is wonderfully consistent. It does not change depending on our status, our title, our wealth, our age, or our mistakes. Truth always asks the same questions. Will you acknowledge what is true? Will you take responsibility? Will you restore what can be restored? Will you allow the old self to be transformed? This also explains why Jesus could summarize the entire law into 2 commandments. Love God and your neighbor. Every law Moses gives ultimately serves those 2 realities. Every trespass is a departure from them. Every act of restoration is a return to them. And the priest shall have it, because those who continually live by truth become the first to experience its freedom. They do not merely teach transformation, they become transformed. That is the beautiful rhythm of Leviticus. The one who helps restore others is continually being restored themselves. Next verse. And the priest that offereth any man's burnt offering, even the priest, shall have to himself the skin of the burnt offering which he hath offered. Priest represents discernment, wisdom, conscience, or the awakened person who helps bring restoration. Offered means participating in the work of transformation. Burnt offering is the surrender of the old self, so a new way of living can emerge. Skin represents the outward identity, appearance, reputation, or visible evidence of transformation. Shall have it means the one who faithfully lives and teaches truth also shares in its fruit. This verse introduces an interesting symbol. After the offering is made, the priest receives the skin. The skin is the outer covering. It is what people see. It represents identity, reputation, the visible life. The old nature has been surrendered on the altar. What remains is a new outward expression. Moses is teaching that genuine inner transformation eventually becomes visible. You cannot hide true character forever. Eventually, what is happening inside begins to show on the outside. Likewise, those who dedicate themselves to helping others grow are themselves shaped by the truth they continually live and teach. The priest receives the skin because truth changes the one who ministers in truth. Relatable examples. Relationships. Someone was once known for being selfish, impatient, and emotionally unavailable. After years of learning, growing, apologizing, and becoming more intentional, people begin describing them differently. They say, "You've changed." Their skin has changed. Their outward character now reflects the inner transformation that has taken place. Next example, parenting. A parent once ruled the home through fear and anger. As they grow, they begin listening, encouraging, apologizing, and creating a safe environment for their children. Their children no longer fear them, they trust them. The parent's outward identity has changed because the heart has changed. Career example. An employee once had a reputation for being unreliable, always late, always making excuses, never taking responsibility. After embracing integrity, they become known as dependable, trustworthy, and excellent in their work. The reputation people now see is the visible skin of an inward transformation. Next example, teaching and leadership. A teacher who continually studies truth, lives it, and helps others grow is also changed by the very lessons they share. Every conversation, every act of service, every lesson, every opportunity to guide another person deepens their own understanding. The one helping others become better is also becoming better. The priest has the skin. Next example, spiritual growth. Many people seek spiritual knowledge to appear wise. Others allow truth to reshape their character. One impresses people with information. The other quietly reflects love, humility, patience, and integrity. The second person's life becomes the visible evidence of what truth has accomplished within. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that transformation is never meant to remain hidden. The purpose of the altar is not merely to change our beliefs, it is to change our lives. Eventually, our relationships, our leadership, our parenting, our work, our conversations, and our character become the visible evidence of what has taken place within. This is why Jesus says, "By their fruits ye shall know them." He does not say, "by their knowledge," or "by their titles." He says, "by their fruits." The fruit is the outward skin of the inner life. When the heart has truly been transformed, the life eventually reflects it. That is the beautiful picture Moses is painting. The sacrifice changes the inside. The skin reveals the change on the outside. True awakening is always visible, not because we try to appear different, but because we have become different. Next verse. And all the meat offering that is baking in the oven, and all that is dressed in the frying pan and in the pan, shall be the priest that offered it. Meat or grain offering is the fruit of one's labor, daily work, service, and dedication. Baking in the oven is growth through hidden seasons, private refinement that no one else sees. Dressed in the frying pan is growth through intense pressure, challenges, and trials. In the pan is growth through the ordinary, everyday experiences of life. Priest refers to the awakened mind, discernment, wisdom, or the person who faithfully lives and ministers in truth. Shall be the priests. The one who embraces the process receives its wisdom, maturity, and fruit. Unlike the previous offerings, Moses now shifts the focus from what is surrendered to what is produced. The grain offering is the result of cultivation. Someone planted, someone waited, someone worked, someone harvested. It represents the fruit of a life lived intentionally. But notice something else. The grain is prepared in different ways. In an oven, in a frying pan, in a pan. Different methods, same offering. Moses is teaching that transformation does not happen the same way for everyone. Some people grow quietly in hidden seasons. Others grow through intense trials. Others are shaped by the ordinary routines of daily life. The process may differ. The purpose is the same. The one who faithfully walks through the process gains its wisdom. Relatable examples: the oven, hidden seasons. Someone spends years learning, studying, and growing without recognition. No applause, no audience, no promotion. People assume nothing is happening. But those hidden years become the foundation for everything they later accomplish. The oven represents the seasons where God, truth, or life is preparing you out of public view. Next, the frying pan, difficult seasons. A person loses a job, a relationship ends, a business fails. At the time, it feels like everything is falling apart. Years later, they realize those painful experiences taught them humility, resilience, compassion, and wisdom that success alone never could. The pressure became part of their preparation. Next, the pan, everyday life. Not every lesson comes through dramatic events. Sometimes, growth happens through showing up to work faithfully, raising children, honoring commitments, serving others, and practicing integrity every day. Transformation often happens in ordinary moments, repeated consistently over time. Next, building a career. Two people become successful. One inherited opportunities. The other spent years quietly developing their skills while no one noticed. When success finally arrives, they value it differently because they remember the process that produced it. The preparation has become part of who they are. Next, spiritual growth. One person experiences a dramatic moment of awakening. Another grows slowly over many years through study, reflection, prayer, life experiences, and continual self-examination. The journeys look different. The destination is the same, a transformed life. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that every season has something to offer. Some lessons come through silence, some through hardship, some through the simple routines of everyday life. The question is not which process is better. The question is, what is this season producing within me? James later echoes this same principle when he writes, "Let patience have her perfect work, And Paul says, tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. Different language, same pattern. Life prepares each of us differently. But if we allow the process to do its work, every season becomes nourishment for the soul. The priest receives the offering because the one who embraces the process becomes wiser through it. Every hidden season, every difficult season, every ordinary season has the potential to become holy when it is allowed to shape our character. Next verse. And every meat offering mingled with oil and dry shall all the sons of Aaron have, one as much as another. Meat or grain offering represents the fruit of our labor, service, dedication, and daily work. Mingled with oil is work empowered by wisdom, love, compassion, and the spirit. Service that flows from inner life. Dry represents seasons where there is little emotion, excitement, or visible reward, simply remaining faithful. Sons of Aaron represents everyone who ministers in truth, those who choose to live by wisdom and integrity. One as much as another means no favoritism. Truth is available to everyone equally. Moses now reveals something beautiful. Some grain offerings were mixed with oil, others were dry, yet both were accepted. Why? Because life is made up of different seasons. Sometimes we serve with great joy. Everything flows naturally. We feel inspired. We see fruit immediately. That is the offering mingled with oil. Other times, we continue doing the right thing even when we feel nothing. No applause, no recognition, no visible result. We simply remain faithful. That is the dry offering. Moses says both belong to the priest. Both are valuable. Both produce maturity. Then he adds something remarkable. One as much as another. Truth shows no favoritism. The opportunity to grow is not reserved for the wealthy or the educated or the famous. Every person is invited into the same journey of transformation. Relatable examples. Marriage. There are seasons where love feels effortless. Conversation flows. Affection is natural. Everything feels exciting. Then there are seasons of illness, financial stress, raising children, or personal struggles. The relationship feels dry. Leviticus teaches that faithfulness during the dry seasons is just as valuable as joy during the flourishing seasons. Next example, parenting. Some days, parenting is full of laughter and beautiful memories. Other days, it is exhausting. Children test boundaries. Nothing seems to be working. Yes, the parents continue showing up with love and consistency. The dry seasons are still producing something beautiful. Career example. At times, work feels exciting. New opportunities arrive. Recognition comes. Promotions happen. Then there are seasons where the work feels repetitive. No one notices the extra effort. The temptation is to stop caring. But Leviticus reminds us that integrity during ordinary days is just as meaningful as excellence during celebrated moments. Spiritual growth. Sometimes reading scripture feels alive. Every page seems to reveal new insights. Other times, the journey feels quiet. No emotional experiences. No dramatic revelations. Yet the person continues seeking truth, practicing kindness, and living with integrity. The absence of excitement does not mean the absence of growth. Whether building a family, a business, a ministry, a community, or a body of work, there will be inspired seasons and there will be ordinary seasons. Those who succeed are not simply those who enjoy the inspired moments. They are those who remain faithful during the ordinary ones. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that our faithfulness should not depend upon our feelings. Oil is wonderful, but even the dry offering is accepted. Some of the greatest growth in our lives happens when we continue doing what is right simply because it is right. Not because it is exciting. Not because people notice. Not because we immediately see results. This also reflects Jesus' teaching. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. Faithfulness is not measured by how we perform during our best days. It is revealed by how we live during our ordinary ones. And finally, Moses reminds us, one as much as another. Truth does not play favorites. The invitation to grow, the invitation to mature, the invitation to awaken belongs equally to everyone. Whether your season is full of oil or whether it feels dry, your offering still matters. And if you remain faithful, both seasons will produce wisdom. Next verse. And this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which he shall offer unto the Lord. The law represents a timeless principle of awakened living rather than merely an external rule. Peace offering represents reconciliation, gratitude, restored relationships, harmony, and living in alignment with truth. To offer is to willingly give from the heart rather than through obligation. Unto the Lord is living in harmony with truth, love, and divine principles. After speaking about sin offerings and trespass offerings, Moses now introduces something different. He begins speaking about peace. Notice the progression. The previous offerings dealt with recognizing wrongdoing, confessing, restoring, and allowing transformation. Now Moses asks, what happens after restoration? The answer is peace. Peace is not simply the absence of conflict. Peace is the result of living in harmony with truth. When deception has been removed, when relationships have been restored, when integrity has returned, peace naturally follows. This is why Moses calls it the law of the peace offering. Peace is not an accident. It is the fruit of living according to truth. Relatable examples. Relationships. Two people have been hurt by misunderstandings and poor communication. Instead of allowing pride to keep them apart, they sit down, listen to one another, acknowledge where they were wrong, forgive, and begin rebuilding trust. The argument ends, but something greater begins: peace. Not because they ignored the problem, because they worked through it. Next example, parenting. A parent realizes they have been too controlling. Their child has become distant. Instead of insisting, I'm the parent, so I'm always right, they begin listening, apologizing, and respecting the child's voice. Over time, the relationship becomes stronger than it was before. The offering is peace. Marriage. A husband and wife have gone through a difficult season. Instead of continuing to keep score, they choose forgiveness, honest communication, and mutual respect. The home begins to feel safe again. Not because life is perfect, but because love has replaced resentment. Workplace example. A manager realizes they have been leading through fear. Employees no longer trust them. Rather than defending themselves, they change how they lead. They become transparent. They listen. They encourage. The workplace culture begins to change. Peace returns because leadership has changed. Next example, communities. A community has been divided by gossip, favoritism, or conflict. People begin choosing honesty over rumors, understanding over assumptions, and reconciliation over revenge. Gradually, the community becomes united again. Peace is not created by pretending problems never existed. Peace is created by addressing them with truth and love. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that peace is one of the greatest offerings we can bring into the world. Every day we have a choice. We can bring fear, division, pride, competition, or we can bring understanding, patience, integrity, reconciliation, and peace. This is why Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." He does not simply say, "Blessed are the peaceful." He says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Peace requires participation. It requires humility. It requires truth. It requires love. Leviticus has been preparing us for this all along. The sin offering restores us. The trespass offering restores others. The peace offering restores relationships. And wherever truth and restoration meet, peace becomes the natural fruit. That is the law of the peace offering. Next verse. If he offer it for a thanksgiving, then he shall offer with the sacrifice of thanksgiving unleavened cakes, mingled with oil, and unleavened wafers, anointed with oil, and cakes mingled with oil, or fine flour, fried. Thanksgiving represents gratitude, recognizing and appreciating the good that has been received. Sacrifice of thanksgiving is choosing gratitude intentionally, even after the cost, growth, or journey that brought you there. Unleavened cakes is sincere gratitude that is free from pride, hypocrisy, or selfish motives. Oil represents wisdom, love, compassion, divine understanding, and the spirit that gives life. Anointed with oil is gratitude that flows from an awakened heart rather than obligation. Fine flour is character that has been refined through life's experiences. Fried is tested through life's pressures and difficulties. This is the first time Moses speaks specifically about thanksgiving. Notice that thanksgiving itself is described as an offering. Why? Because gratitude is not merely a feeling. It is something we choose to bring into life. The cakes are unleavened, mixed with oil, made from fine flour, and prepared through fire. Every symbol tells the same story. True gratitude is rarely produced in comfort alone. It is often born after hardship, loss, waiting, discipline, healing, and transformation. The flour has already been crushed. The cakes have already passed through the fire. Yet now they become an offering of thanksgiving. Gratitude is deepest when it grows out of understanding rather than convenience. Relatable examples, relationships. A couple survives years of misunderstanding, financial struggles, and personal growth. Looking back, they realize the difficult seasons strengthened their relationship. They no longer take one another for granted. Their gratitude is deeper because it has been tested. Parenting example. Parents often don't realize how precious the ordinary moments are until their children become adults and leave home. Looking back, even the exhausting days become treasured memories. Gratitude often arrives after experience has refined our perspective. Career example. Someone loses a job they thought they would have forever. At the time, it feels devastating. Months later, they discover a career that aligns far better with their purpose. Looking back, they become thankful for what once felt like a setback. The pressure became preparation. Health example. A person experiences a serious illness. Recovery teaches them not to take simple things for granted, like walking, breathing, time with family, or another ordinary day. Gratitude becomes richer because suffering changed their perspective. Spiritual growth. Someone spends years confused, discouraged, and searching for truth. After much study, reflection, and life experience, clarity begins to emerge. They become deeply thankful, not because the journey was easy, but because every difficult season prepared them to recognize truth when it appeared. The fire produced wisdom. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that gratitude is one of the highest expressions of an awakened life. Immaturity often focuses on what do I still lack? Wisdom begins asking, what have I already received? The thankful person recognizes that every season has contributed something valuable. The failures taught humility. The losses taught appreciation. The waiting taught patience. The trials produced character. This is why Paul later writes, in everything give thanks. He does not say, give thanks only when life is easy. He says in everything. Not because every experience is pleasant, but because every experience has the potential to shape us into wiser, more loving, and more compassionate people. Leviticus teaches that thanksgiving is not simply spoken, it is lived. It is the natural response of a heart that has passed through the fire, being refined by truth, and now recognizes the value of every lesson along the journey. That is the sacrifice of thanksgiving. Next verse. Besides the cakes, he shall offer for his offering living bread, with the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his peace offerings. Besides the cakes means in addition to what has already been prepared and refined. Living bread refers to ordinary human life, growth that is still ongoing, imperfections, and the reality that we are continually maturing. Thanksgiving is gratitude flowing from an awakened heart. Peace offering refers to reconciliation, harmony, restored relationships, and living in alignment with truth. At first, this verse seems surprising. Earlier, Moses repeatedly instructed that offering should be unleavened. Now he specifically commands living bread to accompany the thanksgiving offering. Why? Because thanksgiving is offered from the reality of everyday life. We do not become thankful only after becoming perfect. We become thankful while still growing. Living represents something that is still developing, something that is still in process. Moses reminds us that gratitude is not reserved for people who have arrived. It belongs to people who recognize that they are still learning, still healing, and still growing. Peace does not require perfection. It requires humility. Relatable examples. Marriage. A couple celebrates their anniversary. Their marriage is not perfect. They still have disagreements. They are still learning one another. Yet, they choose gratitude instead of focusing only on what remains unfinished. Their thanksgiving comes from recognizing how far they have come, not from pretending they have no more work to do. Parenting example. A parent looks back and realizes they have made mistakes. There are things they wish they had done differently. Yet, they also see the love that has grown, the lessons they have learned, and the relationship that continues to mature. Instead of living in regret, they become thankful for the opportunity to keep growing. Personal growth. Someone begins their journey of transformation. They are no longer the person they once were. Yet, they are not yet the person they hope to become. Instead of becoming discouraged by what remains, they celebrate the progress they have already made. Gratitude fuels continued growth. Career example. An entrepreneur builds a business. It is not yet where they envision it. There are setbacks. There are mistakes. There are lessons still to learn. Instead of waiting until they reach every goal, they pause to appreciate the customers opportunities, and growth they have already experienced. Thanksgiving gives them the strength to continue. Spiritual growth. Someone studying the scriptures realizes they still have much to learn. Each chapter opens new understanding. Each lesson reveals areas that still need transformation. Rather than becoming frustrated by how much they do not know, they become thankful for how much has already been revealed. The journey itself becomes a reason for gratitude. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that gratitude and growth belong together. Many people postpone Thanksgiving until everything is perfect. They say things like, I'll be grateful when I find the right relationship, when my finances improve, when my health returns, when my dreams come true. Moses teaches a different principle. Bring your thanksgiving while you are still becoming. Celebrate progress. Celebrate growth. Celebrate the lessons. Celebrate the relationships that have been restored. Celebrate the wisdom that has been gained. This beautifully echoes Paul's words, in everything give thanks. Not because everything is complete, but because every season contributes to who we are becoming. The peace offering reminds us that peace is not found in perfection. Peace is found in learning to live with gratitude while continuing to grow. That is the beauty of the living bread. It reminds us that an awakened life is not a finished life. It is a life continually being transformed, yet continually giving thanks. Next verse. And of it, he shall offer one out of the whole oblation for a heave offering unto the Lord. And it shall be the priest that sprinkled the blood of the peace offerings. One out of the whole is giving back a portion in recognition that the whole is not ours alone. Whole oblation is the totality of our blessings, gifts, resources, opportunities, wisdom, and life experiences. Heave offering represents lifting something up in gratitude, acknowledging the source rather than taking all the credit for ourselves. Unto the Lord is returning honor to truth, love, and the divine source of life. Priest represents discernment, wisdom, and the person who faithfully lives and ministers in truth. Sprinkling the blood is applying the lessons of life, allowing experience to become wisdom that brings life to others. Moses now introduces an important principle. He does not say to offer everything. He says one out of the whole. Why? Because gratitude is expressed by recognizing that what we have is not ours alone. Everything we enjoy today has been shaped by someone else. Someone taught us. Someone encouraged us. Someone sacrificed for us. Someone opened a door. Someone believed in us. Someone created opportunities we now enjoy. The heave offering is a way of saying, I recognize that I did not arrive here alone. Rather than holding everything tightly for ourselves, we willingly give back. Not out of fear, not because we are forced, but because gratitude naturally becomes generosity. Relatable examples: mentorship. A successful entrepreneur remembers the mentor who invested time, wisdom, and encouragement when no one else believed in them. Years later, instead of keeping all their knowledge to themselves, they begin mentoring others. They are giving back a portion of what they have received. The blessing continues beyond them. Parenting example. Parents invest years raising their children. As adults, those children honor their parents, not merely with words, but by caring for them, appreciating their sacrifices, and passing those same values to the next generation. Gratitude becomes something that is lived. Career example. Someone receives a promotion. Instead of believing, I did this entirely on my own, they remember the teachers, co-workers, supervisors, and opportunities that helped them grow. Rather than becoming prideful, they begin helping newer employees succeed. Their success becomes a blessing to others. Next example, financial blessings. A person experiences financial breakthrough. Instead of hoarding everything for themselves, they use a portion to support causes they believe in, help someone in need, invest in education, or create opportunities for others. Their gratitude becomes generosity. Next example, spiritual growth. Someone spends years studying, learning, and receiving wisdom. Eventually, they begin teaching others, not because they know everything, but because they recognize that truth was never meant to stop with them. What was freely received is now freely shared. The offering continues. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that gratitude naturally overflows into generosity. An awakened person understands nothing I have exists in isolation. My knowledge, my opportunities, my relationships, my resources, my gifts have all been shaped by countless people and experiences along the way. This is why Jesus says, freely ye have received, freely give. He is expressing the same principle Moses has been teaching. What we receive is not merely for ourselves. It is meant to become a blessing to others. The heave offering reminds us that mature gratitude always lifts something beyond ourselves. It honors the source. It blesses others. It keeps the flow of generosity alive. The greatest danger is not receiving much. The greatest danger is forgetting where it came from. The awakened heart never forgets. It remembers. It gives thanks, and it gladly gives back. Next verse. And the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings for thanksgiving shall be eaten the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. Flesh represents the practical application of truth, how wisdom is lived out in everyday life. Peace offering represents reconciliation, gratitude, restored relationships, and harmony with truth. Thanksgiving refers to a heart that recognizes and appreciates what has been received. Eating is to internalize, embrace, and immediately put into practice. The same day refers to the present moment. Do not delay acting upon truth. Morning refers to a new season, a new opportunity, or the future. Leave none until morning means do not postpone obedience, gratitude, reconciliation, or the lessons life is teaching you. This verse teaches something deeply practical. Once the peace offering has been made, it is to be eaten the same day. Why? Because truth is meant to be lived immediately. Gratitude loses its power when it is continually postponed. Reconciliation loses its power when we keep saying, I will apologize tomorrow. Love loses its power when we assume there will always be another opportunity. Moses is teaching us not to delay what brings peace. The present moment is where transformation happens. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. Relatable examples. Appreciating relationships. Many people only realize how much someone meant to them after they are gone. While the person was present, they were too busy, too distracted, too confident that there will always be another tomorrow. Then the relationship ends, or the person passes away, and gratitude becomes regret. Leviticus teaches, express your appreciation today. Do not leave it until morning. Next example. Two siblings stop speaking over a misunderstanding. Each one waits for the other to make the first move. Days become months. Months become years. Eventually, one of them dies. The opportunity for reconciliation is gone. Peace was delayed until it was too late. Moses reminds us that peace is meant to be acted upon while the opportunity still exists. Parenting example. A parent works long hours believing, I will spend time with my children when things settle down. Years pass. The children grow up. The moments that could have been shared are gone forever. The lesson is not to neglect tomorrow. It is to value today. Gratitude example. Someone constantly focuses on what they don't yet have. the promotion, the bigger house, the next achievement. Meanwhile, they fail to appreciate the people, opportunities, and blessings already surrounding them. Only after losing them do they realize their value. Thanksgiving delayed often becomes Thanksgiving filled with regret. Spiritual growth. Someone continually says, one day I'll start living differently. One day I'll forgive. One day I'll pursue truth. One day I'll become the person I know I should be. But one day never comes. Leviticus reminds us that transformation begins the moment we choose to live the truth we already know. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that peace is not something to postpone. Neither is gratitude. Neither is love. Neither is forgiveness. The greatest gift we possess is the present moment. This beautifully echoes Jesus' teaching. Take therefore no thought for the morrow. And Paul's words, now is the accepted time, now is the day. Both remind us that truth is always lived in the present. How many relationships could have been healed? How many words of appreciation could have been spoken? How many opportunities could have been embraced if people had not waited until tomorrow? The peace offering teaches us to live differently. Love while you can. Forgive while you can. Say thank you while you can. Honor people while they are still here. Live the truth today. For today's offering was never meant to be left until tomorrow. Next verse. But if the sacrifice of his offering be a vow or a voluntary offering, it shall be eaten the same day that he offered his sacrifice. And on the morrow also, the remainder of it shall be eaten. Vow is a conscious commitment, a promise made from conviction and intentionality. Voluntary offering is an act of love freely given, not forced, manipulated, or done out of obligation. Eating is to internalize, embody, and put into practice. The same day means act immediately upon the truth you have embraced. On the morrow also means continue living that truth beyond the initial moment of inspiration. The remainder is the ongoing fruit and lessons that continue to nourish us after the first experience. Notice the difference between this offering and the previous one. In verse 15, the Thanksgiving offering was to be eaten the same day. Here, Moses allows the vow and voluntary offering to be eaten the same day and the following day. Why? Because gratitude is meant to be expressed immediately, but a vow is different. A vow represents a long-term commitment. It is not sustained by a single emotional moment. It must continue beyond the excitement of the decision. Anyone can make a promise in an emotional moment. The real question is, will you still honor that commitment tomorrow? Moses teaches that genuine commitment nourishes us, not only in the moment we make it, but in the days that follow. Relatable examples. Marriage. Two people stand before family and friends and exchange vows. The ceremony lasts one day. The marriage lasts a lifetime. Love is not proven by the promises spoken on the wedding day. It is proven by faithfully living those promises after every day afterward. The vow continues to nourish the relationship long after the celebration ends. Parenting example. A parent promises, I want to be more present for my children. The promise itself changes nothing. Transformation comes when they continue making time, listening, and showing up every day. The commitment is lived beyond the moment it was made. Career example. Someone decides, from today onward, I will work with integrity. The first day is important, but integrity is built through thousands of ordinary decisions made over months and years. The initial commitment must continue into tomorrow. Personal growth. After losing a meaningful relationship, someone realizes they have been taking people for granted. They promise themselves, if I am given another opportunity, I will love more intentionally. That promise becomes a new way of living, not just for one day, but for every future relationship. The lesson continues nourishing them long after the original pain has passed. Spiritual growth. Someone experiences a powerful moment of awakening. They live inspired. But Moses reminds us that awakening is not sustained by inspiration alone. It is sustained by daily practice. The truth discovered today must continue to be lived tomorrow. Otherwise, they become temporary emotions rather than lasting transformation. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that there is a difference between a moment and a lifestyle. Many people make vows. Few faithfully live them. Many begin with enthusiasm. Few remain consistent when the excitement fades. This is why Jesus says, let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. And Ecclesiastes reminds us, when thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it. A commitment has value because it is honored over time. The peace offering teaches us that love, integrity, and truth are not one-day experiences. They are daily choices. Gratitude may be expressed in the moment, but commitment must endure beyond the moment. The question Leviticus leaves us with is, am I living today what I promised yesterday? Because true transformation is not measured by the promises we make. It is measured by the life we continue to live after the promise has been spoken. Next verse. But the remainder of the flesh of the sacrifice on the third day shall be burnt with fire. Remainder refers what has been left unused, neglected, or held onto beyond its intended purpose. Flesh represents the practical expression of truth, how we live out what we have learned. Third day represents a new season, a completed cycle, or the moment when truth calls for renewal and resurrection. Burnt with fire is to release, purify, and let go. Allow truth to consume what is no longer life-giving. Moses now introduces an important principle. Not everything is meant to be carried forever. The offering was valuable. It brought nourishment. It served its purpose. But eventually, there comes a time when whatever remains must be burned. Why? Because what nourished you yesterday can become unhealthy if you refuse to move forward. This is not a rejection of the past. It is an invitation to avoid living in the past. There are seasons in life that are meant to shape us. They are not meant to imprison us. The fire represents the wisdom to recognize when it is time to let go. Relatable examples. Someone loses a relationship that profoundly changed their life. They learn valuable lessons about love, communication, and gratitude. Those lessons should remain. But years later, they are still comparing every new person to their former partner. They refuse to open their heart again. The relationship that once taught them has now become something they are clinging to. Leviticus reminds us, keep the lesson, release what no longer gives life. Another example. Someone made a serious mistake years ago. They apologized. They made restitution. They changed. Yet they continue defining themselves by what happened. Every opportunity is met with, I'm the person who failed. The failure has served its purpose. Now it must be placed in the fire. Otherwise, yesterday's mistake continues controlling today's life. Next example. Losing someone we love changes us forever. The memories remain precious. The love remains. But eventually, healing invites us to live again, to laugh again, to hope again, to love again. Honoring someone's memory is different from remaining trapped in the moment of loss. Next example. A person has a powerful spiritual experience. For years, they spend their life trying to recreate that exact moment. Instead of continuing to grow, They become attached to yesterday's experience. Leviticus teaches that truth is always inviting us forward. We are not called to live on old experiences alone. We are called to continue walking. Career example. Someone reaches a major achievement. For the next 20 years, every conversation begins with, back when I. The accomplishment becomes their identity. Instead of continuing to grow, they remain emotionally attached to yesterday's success. The achievement should be appreciated, but it should not prevent new growth. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that every season has a purpose. Some things are meant to nourish us for a time, but they are not meant to become permanent attachments. This is why Paul writes, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. He is not saying we erase the past. He is saying we refuse to live in it. The fire represents the courage to release what has completed its purpose. Keep the wisdom. Keep the gratitude. Keep the transformation. But do not keep carrying what truth is asking you to surrender. An awakened life knows the difference between remembering the lesson and remaining stuck in the season that taught it. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to place yesterday on the altar. Allow the fire to consume what no longer serves us and step faithfully into the new day that lies ahead. Next verse. And if any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings be eaten at all on the third day, it shall not be accepted. Neither shall it be imputed unto him that offered it. It shall be an abomination, and the soul that eateth of it shall bear his iniquity. Flesh represents the practical expression of truth, how we live out what we have learned. Peace offering represents reconciliation, restored relationships, gratitude, and harmony with truth. Third day represents a new season, the time when life is calling us forward into fresh growth. Not accepted means what once brought life is no longer producing life because it is being used outside its proper time and purpose. Not imputed means it no longer carries the value or benefit it once did. Abomination is a distortion of the original purpose, using something in a way it was never intended. Bear his iniquity is living with the consequences of refusing to grow, change, or move forward. This verse builds directly upon the previous one. In verse 17, Moses said the remainder should be burned. Now he explains why. If someone insists on eating it on the third day, it is no longer accepted. Why? Because truth has seasons. What nourished you yesterday may no longer nourish you today if you refuse to continue growing. The issue is not the offering itself. The issue is refusing to recognize that life moves forward Sometimes we become attached to old victories, old failures, old identities, old relationships, old traditions, or old ways of thinking. Instead of allowing those experiences to prepare us for the next season, we keep trying to live from yesterday. Moses says that eventually, what once gave life can become a hindrance if we refuse to move forward. Relatable examples: living in past glory. Someone was very successful 20 years ago. Every conversation begins with "back when I." Instead of continuing to grow, they live entirely from yesterday's accomplishments. Their past success becomes an excuse to stop learning. The achievement was good, but it was never meant to replace continued growth. Next example: holding on to past hurt. A person experienced betrayal years ago. The pain taught valuable lessons about discernment and boundaries. But decades later, they still refuse to trust anyone. Every new relationship is jarred through an old wound. The lesson has become a prison. Instead of bringing peace, it now steals peace. Parenting example. Parents sometimes continue treating their adult children as if they were still small children. They cannot release control. They cannot recognize that a new season has begun. What was appropriate during childhood becomes harmful when carried into adulthood. Love must grow with the relationship. Next example: faith communities. A community experiences a genuine move of truth that transforms many lives. Years later, instead of remaining open to continued growth, they become committed to preserving methods rather than pursuing truth itself. The memory becomes more important than the mission. The experience that once brought life becomes a tradition that resists further growth. Next example: personal growth. Someone overcomes a difficult season. Instead of allowing it to strengthen them, they continue introducing themselves by that painful chapter. Every conversation begins with who they used to be. Their identity remains trapped in a season that has already passed. The past is remembered, but it is never left behind. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that every season has an expiration point. The lesson remains. The wisdom remains. The gratitude remains. But we are not meant to keep living from yesterday. An awakened person asks, what is truth asking me to release? What season has served its purpose? Am I honoring the past, or am I refusing to leave it? This beautifully mirrors Jesus' words. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles. The problem was never the wine. The problem was trying to contain new life within an old structure. Paul expresses the same principle when he writes, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. Leviticus has been teaching this from the beginning. Peace is not maintained by clinging to yesterday. Peace is maintained by allowing truth to continually renew us. The greatest danger is not that yesterday existed. The greatest danger is trying to live there forever. An awakened life knows when to cherish the lesson and when to step courageously into the new season that truth is unfolding. Verse 19. And the flesh that toucheth any unclean thing shall not be eaten. It shall be burnt with fire. And as for the flesh, all that be clean shall eat thereof. Flesh represents the practical expression of truth, how truth is lived out in everyday life. Touch is association, influence, exposure, or close contact. Unclean thing is anything that corrupts integrity, distorts truth, or produces unhealthy patterns of thinking and living. Shall not be eaten means do not internalize, embrace, or allow it to become part of your life. Burnt with fire means allow truth to expose, remove, and purify what has become corrupted. Clean represents a heart and mind that are receptive to truth, integrity, and wisdom. To eat thereof is to internalize and live what is life-giving. Moses introduces another important principle. The issue is no longer the offering itself. The issue is what it has come into contact with. Something that was originally good can become corrupted through unhealthy influences. This is true of our thoughts, relationships, habits, beliefs, conversations, and environments. Leviticus teaches that we should not blindly absorb everything we encounter. Not every influence is healthy. Not every voice deserves our trust. Not every environment produces life. If something that once brought peace becomes corrupted by deception, manipulation, hatred, bitterness, or injustice, Moses says, do not consume it. Allow truth to expose it. Allow it to be purified. Relatable examples. Relationships. A person enters a relationship with good intentions. Over time, the relationship becomes abusive, manipulative, or emotionally destructive. They slowly begin believing they are worthless because of the constant criticism. Leviticus reminds us, do not internalize lies about your identity simply because you've been exposed to them. Allow truth to burn away those false beliefs. Next example, friendships. A group of friends constantly gossips, mocks others, and celebrates dishonesty. At first, it feels harmless. Eventually, Those attitudes begin shaping everyone in the group. What we repeatedly expose ourselves to eventually influences how we think. Truth asks us to examine whether our environment is producing life or corruption. Next example, social media. Someone spends hours every day consuming content built on outrage, comparison, fear, or misinformation. Without realizing it, anxiety, anger, and resentment begin governing their thoughts. Not everything available to consume is healthy nourishment. Discernment is choosing what deserves a place in our minds. Parenting example. A child repeatedly hears, "You will never succeed. You are not good enough. You will always fail." Those words become an unclean influence, shaping the child's identity. Healing begins when truth replaces those false messages with a healthier understanding of their worth and potential. Next example, spiritual growth. Someone genuinely desires truth. Over time, they become surrounded by teachings built on fear, manipulation, control, or constant condemnation. Instead of producing freedom, those teachings produce anxiety and shame. Leviticus reminds us that even something presented as spiritual should be examined by its fruit. Truth produces life. Anything that continually produces fear, oppression, or deception should be brought into the refining fire. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that what we consume eventually becomes part of us. This applies to more than food. It applies to the ideas we embrace, the conversations we entertain, the media we consume, the relationships we cultivate, and the beliefs we repeatedly rehearse. This is why Paul writes, "Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners." And why Jesus teaches, "Ye shall know them by their fruits." Leviticus has been preparing us for this principle all along. The question is not simply, is this enjoyable? The deeper question is, what is this producing within me? Does it produce love, wisdom, integrity, compassion, and peace? Or does it produce fear, bitterness, pride, deception, and division? The awakened life is careful about what it allows to shape the heart. Because whatever we continually eat eventually becomes our character. Truth invites us to consume what gives life and surrender everything that corrupts it. Verse 20. But the soul that eateth of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings, that pertain unto the Lord, having his uncleanness upon him, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Soul represents the conscious person making choices. Eated is to internalize, embrace, and live by. Flesh of the peace offering represents the life, wisdom, reconciliation, and harmony that truth offers. Pertain unto the Lord is that which belongs to truth, integrity, love, and divine principles. And cleanness upon him is carrying unresolved bitterness, deception, hypocrisy, pride, selfishness, or any attitude that corrupts the heart. Cut off from his people represents separation, isolation, broken fellowship, and the natural consequences of refusing transformation. Moses now shifts the focus from external uncleanness to the condition of the person approaching the offering. The peace offering represents reconciliation. But reconciliation cannot truly be experienced while we refuse to deal with what is destroying peace within us. The issue is not that God is rejecting the person. The issue is that the person is trying to embrace peace without addressing the attitudes that continually produce conflict. You cannot genuinely enjoy peace while feeding hatred. You cannot build healthy relationships while living in deception. You cannot experience reconciliation while refusing to forgive, take responsibility, or change. The offering remains holy, but the person is not yet ready to receive what it represents. Relatable examples. Relationships. Someone constantly demands honesty from their partner, yet they continue hiding messages, lying, or living a double life. They desire the benefits of trust while refusing to become trustworthy themselves. Eventually, the relationship breaks down, not because love failed, because integrity was absent. Next example. A family member wants everyone to forgive them, but they never acknowledge the pain they caused. They expect reconciliation without accountability. True peace cannot be built on denial. Healing begins when truth is welcomed. Workplace example. An employee complains that no one trusts them, yet they repeatedly gossip, break confidentiality, and shift blame onto others. Trust cannot grow where integrity is continually neglected. The isolation they experience becomes the natural consequence of their choices. Comedy example. A leader continually speaks about unity, yet behind the scenes, they manipulate, divide, and play people against one another. Eventually, the community begins falling apart. Peace cannot exist where deception is being protected. This separation is not punishment. It is the natural result of abandoning truth. Our inner life. Sometimes we ask, why don't I have peace? Yet every day we feed resentment, jealousy, comparison, bitterness, unforgiveness, fear, or dishonesty, we are consuming the very things that destroy the peace we desire. Moses invites us to examine not only what we seek, but what we are carrying. The inner lesson. Leviticus teaches that peace is not merely something we receive. It is something we become prepared to live. Many people want healthy relationships, inner peace, restored families, trustworthy friendships, and fulfilling communities. But they continue carrying the very attitudes that undermine those things. This is why Jesus first says, "First cast out the beam out of thy own eye. And then blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Purity is not about ritual. It's about removing what prevents us from living in truth and love. Leviticus is not teaching rejection. It is teaching readiness. The soul that refuses transformation naturally becomes separated from the peace it seeks. But the beautiful invitation remains. Lay aside whatever corrupts the heart. Allow truth to purify the inner life. Then the peace offering is no longer just something you observe. It becomes something you experience. That is the heartbeat of Leviticus. Peace is not found by pretending nothing is wrong. Peace is found when truth transforms the person who longs for it. Part A ends here. We will finish up tomorrow. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next teaching. Enjoy the rest of your day.